Many of you have asked me this question of what are the kind of questions that come up in an interview for a fund accounting firm. And therefore, I decided to prepare a video of a video series in about 100 questions that could potentially come up at fund interview questions. Please take a look at these videos. And if you have any doubts further than that, I'd be happy to help you out. I'm your learning partner, Sushila Hariharan. And if you're interested in a career in fund accounting, corporate action, trade life cycle, or OTC derivatives, do subscribe to my YouTube channel where I do, of course, provide a lot of videos, but I also test your knowledge in the community section. I post quizzes regularly so that you can tickle your brains and understand what is the right answer. So there are multiple ways to approach how an interview is conducted at some of these hedge funds. This first video takes a look at some of the potential questions that could be asked at the interview. Now, when you go for an interview, okay, to a fund accounting firm, and this is the ideas and knowledge that I have gained from speaking to industry experts, that the interview is going to be covering three large spheres. The first sphere is market awareness. How aware are you about terms in the stock markets, in the bond markets, in the forex markets, in the commodity markets? Because guess what? Hedge funds trade in all these markets, right? So you have to have some basic understanding about what are the different types of products, what are the different regulators, how are prices quoted, how these markets function, are they exchange traded, are they OTC, etc., etc. So it's very important to be having an understanding about markets, generally speaking. The second sphere that interviewers are looking to test your knowledge on is accounting domain. Now, what does it mean by accounting domain? Accounting domain is basic understanding of rules of accounting. Okay. Now, accounting is not necessary that you have to be a hardcore accountant to be able to understand, but you got to know the rules, you got to know the principles, you got to know a lot of stuff about why we ascribe certain transactions to certain ledger accounts and so on. And then finally, my favorite bit of it, personal, to understand what are the career plans that you have, etc., etc. So let's take a look at some of these questions that would come. The first set of questions is on markets awareness. The first question they typically would ask is, what is a fund? So your answer should include these statements. A fund is a pool of capital. Okay. Now, what is a pool? A pool is you have to take capital from different investors and you're making a pool of that capital. It's like jumping into a swimming pool or jumping into a river, jumping into a sea, and the sea comprises water from different sources. You really can't attribute uh, the performance to each of those sources. But over here, we do that. We try to create that pool. We try to make money more accountable towards profits and higher returns. A fund is managed by an AMC, an asset management company, and they invest across asset classes like equities, bonds, and money markets. If you get these three statements right, you're almost there. Okay? So it's if Ravi Agrawal takes his money and gives it to his portfolio manager to handle. That's not a pool, right? The portfolio manager is only managing Ravi Agrawal's money. But on the other hand, if Ravi Agrawal, Hari, Sham, Ram, etc., all of them come together and collectively put the capital to this asset management company, and there's an independent portfolio manager who's handling this money. Okay, that's what is called as a hedge fund. So these three statements are absolutely important to get clarity on. A pool of capital, an asset management company that invests in different asset classes. What is the value of the fund? The value of the fund is the gross value, and the net asset value is unitized. The fund value is also called as the net asset value, or the NAV. It is the mark to market valuation of all investments held, and from this, you reduce the value of the liabilities. How do I know what is the value of the fund? The way you know the value of the fund is because the fund announces NAV. So if you're working for the fund, it is one of the many attributes that you would be doing, one of the many functions you would be doing is to declare and calculate the NAV on a regular basis. A third potential question that could come up are what are close-ended funds? So close-ended funds are funds that have a constant share base. Okay, the capital doesn't increase. There is no ongoing subscriptions or redemptions that are permitted into the fund. Therefore, there is no daily change in the NAVs. Okay. Now, why are they asking this question? Think about it. They're asking this question because they want to know, have you researched this topic before coming to them for an interview? Or are you just coming randomly because the fund came to your college and they asked for 50 graduates? That's not the point. The point that you have to distinguish yourself from the other 1,000 candidates that are there is to demonstrate knowledge. And how you can demonstrate knowledge? Not by flashing only degrees and certificates and diplomas and whatever that you've got from other online sources, offline sources, but to also demonstrate how much of the topic you understand because you're going to apply for that job interview, right? So, therefore, it's very important to get an understanding of these aspects. The question towards accounting could move towards what is depreciation. In accounting, depreciation is a gradual annual valuation of assets to reflect wear and tear. Okay, there are many definitions of account depreciation, and it's very important to use it in context of accounting. Okay, the obvious English definition is appreciation, ka opposite is depreciation, but that's not how accounting treats it, right? Accounting says that that asset has got value, but that value is decreasing on a annual basis. So you're spreading off the asset value over a period of time, and it's a tax planning measure. Okay, so you must demonstrate your knowledge and understanding of accounting by explaining all these three attributes with respect to hedge fund accounting. The hedge fund interview could also include what's the difference between revenue and capital transactions? Okay, this is such an interesting question because revenue transactions are those which are regular, frequent, and you have to have a thorough understanding of what we are explaining over here. Capital transactions have a long-term objective. For example, you raise equity capital for buying machinery. So equity capital is long-term as well as machinery. Now, why over here I have included example? Because when you go as a candidate to answer those questions asked by the interview, you have to outshine others. So not only do you have to impress the interview panel with your understanding of the domain and the concept, but if you could throw an example or two, it would make your knowledge, your understanding even more practical, even more exemplary, even more real world. And that's what you need to do to outshine your peers or your competitors. A revenue transaction is one which has a day-to-day objective. Very simple. Long-term objective, capital transaction. Revenue transactions are those that have day-to-day objectives, for example, salaries to staff and rent for your warehouse. So give examples wherever you can because that really highlights your not just knowledge, but superior understanding of the topic at hand. What are the types of account classifications? The types of accounts classifications include real accounts like cash balances, nominal accounts like expenses, personal accounts of vendors and clients. So now this could be a twisted question, okay? So I might just say real accounts like cash balances. But the interviewer could ask, what kind of account is cash balances? Is it a real account or a nominal account? Now, when you're sitting on the hot seat over there, it's very difficult to actually think so quickly. Yeah. So I urge you to go through a lot of these steps and these statements in a dual manner. Okay. Don't approach it only from a singular linear fashion. Real accounts are like cash balances, fixed assets, etc. And then they could ask another question like, what kind of account is an expense account? Is it a nominal account? If it's a nominal account, then why is it a nominal account? And so on. So your answers should not only describe what, but should also describe why you think it is that way. And that's how we move ahead in the interview. Okay, then moving on to the personal question, why do you want a job in a fund accounting firm? Think about the answers you want to give, because you want to work in finance, you want to work in markets, you want to be, you're having a, market enthusiast. I see so many people who are market enthusiasts. You want to be in the field of finance and markets. What is your biggest strength? You got to think about this as well, because your strength is not something that will be known to them by that 10-minute interview unless you articulate it out very, very clearly as to what are your strengths. So, working under pressure, being able to meet deadlines, uh, being fairly open to ideas, being quick on decision making are all some of the things that you must mention as your biggest strength. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Okay. Don't go and say, I see myself in your seat, Mr. VPG. That would be a little funny thing to say. So therefore, think of what you ascribe as your, as a career path from joining as a new recruit to right up to the career path. Thank you so much for listening into this video. If you find this content useful, do subscribe to my YouTube channel.